Hey guys, what an awesome end to our third quarter today. Let's get into what we learned. Hey guys, this is for week 18 memory work. Let's start with math. This week we learned the area of a triangle, and we continued our song that we have been learning for the past couple of weeks. So today was the area of a triangle equals 1/2 base times height. And so we learned that this was the base, the bottom of the triangle, this is the height, and then of course we've got our invisible line here that connects them together. So that was the area of a triangle, and then moving to Latin, we continued learning our future tense, and that is bo bis bit, bimis bitis bunt, bo bis bit, bimis bitis bunt, first conjugation, future tense, future tense. All right, so that was Latin. Then moving to science, we learned Newton's third law of motion. So Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And so for this, I can't do the full motion that we did since I'm sitting down, but whenever we said for every action, we got really down low to the ground and hugged ourselves. And we said for every action, there is an equal and opposite. And then when we said reaction, we jumped and threw our arms in the air. So we did for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. All right, so that is Newton's third law of motion. Then for English this week, we learned the 5 cases of nouns. And so I showed you 2 different ways that we could do this. So the first one was 5 cases of nouns. We're going to do subject, you point to yourself. Direct object, you point directly at someone, direct object. Indirect object, you're just going to move your arms around, indirect object. Then for object of the preposition, we pat our bellies, object of the preposition. And then for possessive, you just hug yourself and you're going to pull it to you. So we have subject, direct object, indirect object, object of the preposition, and possessive. And then the second way was a song, and that's just rearranging the different cases of nouns so that it spells Spido. So this is the song. It goes, Spido, 5 cases of nouns. Subject, possessive, indirect object, direct object. Object of the preposition. Spido, 5 cases of nouns. Subject, possessive, indirect object, direct object. Object of the preposition, Spido, and it keeps going over and over again until you have memorized it. So that was English. And then moving to history this week, we learned about the United Nations. So in 1945, so you hold up a 4 and a 5. After the League of Nations, so for this, we're going to pretend like we have a baseball bat and we're going to swing it. So after the League of Nations, then for failed to prevent, we took our thumbs and we put them down. Failed to prevent. And then we all know our sign for World War II. So failed to prevent World War II. And it goes a little fast, so it's okay if you just do W2. Then American President Roosevelt, we're going to salute American President Roosevelt. So you're going to take these 2 fingers and cross them to make an R. American President Roosevelt. Then for British Prime Minister Churchill, you're going to give me a C and then just turn it in. So British Prime Minister Churchill. And Soviet Premier Stalin. So for this, we learned last week about his mustache. So we're going to do like this. Soviet Premier Stalin. began, so just put your hand out like this, began the United Nations. And we're just going to interlock our fingers. So let's do that all together. Here we go. In 1945, after the League of Nations failed to prevent World War II, American President Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Churchill, and Soviet Premier Stalin began the United Nations. All right, so that was history this week. And then for geography, we learned more Central European countries. So we found Austria, Italy, Czechia, Hungary, and Slovakia. So those were all the places that we found, and they were all in the same kind of area down towards the bottom of our map. And then for timeline this week, we started off with Cherokee Trail of Tears. So for this, you're going to take your finger and then just run it down your face like you have a tear coming down. So Cherokee Trail of Tears. Then we have U.S. westward expansion. So for this, you're going to take a W, cross your body, and then just go across. So U.S. westward expansion. Then our next one is Marx publishes the Communist Manifesto. So we're going to be here from U.S. westward expansion. So keep these three, put your thumb, 3 down. So Marx publishes, and then the Communist Manifesto, you're going to just write really furiously on your hand. So Marx publishes the Communist Manifesto. Then the next one is the Compromise of 1850 and the Dred Scott Decision. For this, you're going to take your fingers out and bring them in. So the Compromise of 1850. And then you're going to keep this hand and make a D. So that's a circle with this finger up. The Dred Scott, and then bring your hand down like a gavel. Decision. So the Compromise of 1850 and the Dred Scott Decision. Then our next one is U.S. restores trade with Japan. So for this, we're just going to pretend like we are trading and getting things back. So we're going to give and take. So U.S. restores trade with Japan. Then British Queen Victoria's rule over India. So for this, we're going to do British Queen Victoria. So do a V for Victoria. Her rule, we're going to have our scepter, slam it on the ground, rule over India. And we're going to point to our foreheads right here. So British Queen Victoria's rule over India. And then our last one is Darwin publishes The Origin of Species. So for this, we're going to do a D again for Darwin publishes. And then The Origin of Species, you're going to take your hand and then have 3 on the bottom and 1 up. Take this finger from Darwin right here, put it in this little opening here and twist. And it is okay if you don't get it right, you just get the twist. All right, so Darwin publishes The Origin of Species. All right, so let's do that all together. Here we go. Cherokee Trail of Tears, U.S. westward expansion. Marx publishes the Communist Manifesto. The Compromise of 1850 and the Dred Scott Decision. U.S. restores trade with Japan. British Queen Victoria's rule over India. Darwin publishes The Origin of Species. All right, so that was all of our memory work from this week. And then for science this week, we had 2 different experiments, but they were pretty much the same, just showing us the same thing about something called an inclined plane. So our first one was called lifter, and we had a screw in our hand, and we had this picture here, which is parts of a screw. And we had the screw in our hand, and we were able to feel the thread going around and down the screw. And so what we did, we started with our fingers down at the bottom, and then we twisted, and slowly our fingers started going up the screw. But we weren't moving our fingers, the screw was moving, and our fingernails were going through the threads. And then when you twisted the opposite way, your fingers looked like they were going down. And so we talked about the thread and how the screws help connect things. And we talked about the different things that we can use a screw for, like building a house. And I can't think of all the other things that we talked about, but we talked about what the screw does and that ultimately it is to connect things. And then our next experiment was called ramp. And so still the idea of an inclined plane and the thread going around the screw, but this time we had a pencil and we had a paper cut into a triangle. And so we taped the tall part of the triangle to our pencil and we had colored the edge of it, and then we wrapped it around our pencil and it showed what looked like a ramp going up and down our pencil. And so we talked again about the inclined plane and how this was like a road winding up or like a big slide, and that the slide slows you down as you were going down. And ultimately, an inclined plane is called a simple machine, and this is what makes jobs easier. So those were our science experiments, and that was it for week 18. I will see you guys back for week 19 as we start our final quarter for the year. Bye.